In a world filled with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. The constant pressure to accumulate wealth, acquire possessions, and maintain a certain lifestyle can leave us feeling anxious and disconnected from our deeper values. Amid this rush, we may overlook the importance of mindfulness, the practice of being fully present and aware of our thoughts, actions, and decisions. When it comes to managing money and material possessions, mindfulness can help us make more thoughtful choices, reduce stress, and cultivate a deeper sense of contentment and abundance. Mindfulness encourages us to slow down and pay attention to the small, often overlooked aspects of our lives. This is especially important when it comes to managing our finances. By practicing mindfulness with money, we can shift our perspective from one of scarcity and stress to one of abundance and clarity. This shift is not just about financial wealth but about cultivating a sense of fulfillment and peace that transcends material possessions. One simple way to start integrating mindfulness into your financial life is to focus on the small details. For instance, collecting loose change and organizing it in one place might seem trivial, but it is a powerful practice. When you gather your loose change, you make space for it, both physically and mentally. You acknowledge its value and create a habit of being mindful about the resources you have. This small act of appreciation can lead to a shift in mindset, from viewing money as a source of stress to seeing it as a tool for personal growth and abundance. The principle of mindfulness can also be applied to spending habits. How often do we make impulse purchases without thinking about whether we really need the item, or whether it aligns with our long-term goals? Mindful spending encourages us to pause before making a purchase, to ask ourselves if it truly enhances our lives, and if it aligns with our values. Instead of succumbing to the latest trends or advertisements, we make choices that support our well-being and contribute to a more fulfilling life. Moreover, this practice helps us recognize the difference between wants and needs. In a consumer-driven society, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that we need more in order to be happy. But by practicing mindfulness, we start to see that true happiness comes not from the accumulation of possessions but from appreciating what we already have. This shift in perspective can lead to greater contentment and financial freedom, as we become less focused on external acquisitions and more focused on internal fulfillment. The practice of mindful spending extends beyond individual purchases and touches on the broader idea of budgeting and saving. Often, our financial habits are shaped by automatic responses, paying bills, buying groceries, or even splurging on a treat, without fully reflecting on how those decisions fit into our larger financial goals. The Buddhist approach to financial management, which emphasizes mindfulness and moderation, offers a refreshing perspective on how we can cultivate a balanced and thoughtful approach to money. A key concept in this approach is the idea of the middle way, which advocates for balance in all areas of life. This principle encourages us to avoid extremes, whether it's the excessive pursuit of wealth or complete renunciation of material possessions. By embracing the middle way in our financial lives, we move away from the stress of financial excess or scarcity. Instead, we learn to use money as a tool that can support our well-being and enhance the well-being of others, without becoming attached to it as the ultimate goal. The middle way doesn't just apply to money, it applies to how we engage with all aspects of life. It encourages us to live simply and intentionally, focusing on what truly brings us joy and fulfillment. In financial terms, this might mean allocating resources in a way that supports not only our immediate needs but also our long-term stability and growth. It could involve saving for the future, spending wisely on things that align with our values, and also setting aside a portion of our income for charitable giving or helping others in need. When we learn to balance the act of saving, spending, and giving, we create a harmonious financial system for ourselves. Instead of constantly worrying about accumulating more or falling behind, we find a sense of security and satisfaction in what we already have. This approach not only benefits our financial health but also fosters emotional well-being, as we no longer feel driven by fear or greed but by a sense of purpose and intentionality in how we manage our resources. It's important to remember that moderation doesn't mean deprivation. It's about cultivating a sense of sufficiency, knowing when enough is enough. This wisdom, echoed by philosophers like Lao Tzu, teaches us that those who recognize when they have enough are able to live in peace, free from the constant pressure to acquire more. In a world obsessed with consumption, this message is liberating. It allows us to step away from the chase for endless material wealth and instead focus on creating a life that is rich in meaningful experiences, relationships, and personal growth. Another powerful aspect of Buddhist financial wisdom is the practice of mindful consumption. In today's consumer-driven world, we are constantly bombarded with advertisements and social pressure to buy the latest products, gadgets, and experiences. It's easy to get caught in the cycle of wanting more, even when what we already have is enough. Buddhist teachings encourage us to slow down and reflect before making a purchase, considering whether an item truly aligns with our values and enhances our lives. Mindful consumption is about being intentional with what we bring into our homes and our lives. It's not just about limiting material possessions, but also about fostering a deeper awareness of what we truly need versus what we think we want in the moment. This practice can be as simple as pausing to reflect before buying something, asking ourselves, will this item add real value to my life, or is it simply something I feel compelled to purchase due to external pressures? This doesn't mean we should deny ourselves pleasure or joy in acquiring things, but it does encourage us to think more consciously about what we allow into our lives. By doing so, we reduce the clutter in our physical spaces, but more importantly, we create more space in our minds for what truly matters. It's easy to forget that physical possessions require time, energy, and attention. Each item we bring into our lives carries with it a responsibility, to maintain it, to care for it, and to ensure it serves a meaningful purpose. When we stop acquiring things impulsively, we also reduce the environmental impact of overconsumption. By choosing quality over quantity and seeking out sustainable options, we not only protect the planet but also align ourselves with the Buddhist principle of compassion. Mindful consumption, then, is a way of honoring both our own well-being and the well-being of the world around us. There's a sense of freedom that comes from simplifying our material lives. As we let go of unnecessary possessions, we release the weight of consumerism and the constant pressure to keep up with trends or societal standards. This freedom allows us to focus more on what truly brings happiness, like personal growth, relationships, and experiences that nourish our souls. By practicing mindful consumption, we can also cultivate a greater sense of gratitude. When we begin to appreciate what we already have, rather than constantly seeking more, we shift our focus from scarcity to abundance. We realize that true contentment comes not from acquiring things but from appreciating what is already present in our lives. In line with the practice of mindful consumption, Buddhist teachings also emphasize contentment and simplicity as essential aspects of a fulfilling life. Contentment doesn't mean complacency or settling for less, but rather recognizing and appreciating the sufficiency of what we already have. When we embrace contentment, we free ourselves from the constant chase for more, which often leads to dissatisfaction and frustration. In the modern world, where advertisements and societal norms constantly promote the idea that more is better, contentment offers a refreshing and peaceful alternative. True wealth, as Buddhism teaches, lies not in accumulating possessions, but in cultivating a peaceful and satisfied mind. The more we can learn to enjoy the simple pleasures of life, whether it's a quiet morning, a heartfelt conversation, or a beautiful sunset, the more we can shift our mindset from wanting to having. This shift is powerful because it helps us resist the pull of consumerism, which often promises happiness through material acquisition but fails to deliver true contentment. Simplicity, on the other hand, is not about deprivation. It's about clarity. It's about choosing to live with only what is necessary, what serves us, and what brings us joy. By embracing simplicity, we cut away the excess and focus on the essential, creating space for what truly nurtures our well-being. This might mean letting go of physical clutter, but it also means simplifying our mental clutter. The busyness of modern life can be overwhelming, but by simplifying our lives, we make room for greater peace and clarity. A powerful story from Buddhist tradition illustrates the value of simplicity. A wealthy man once asked a monk why he lived so simply. The monk replied, "I have everything I need. I am content with what I have." The wealthy man, despite his material abundance, was still searching for happiness and fulfillment. This story reminds us that happiness does not come from external wealth but from internal peace. The monk's contentment came not from what he had or didn't have, but from his ability to be at peace with what was enough. One way to practice contentment and simplicity in our lives is by cultivating gratitude. When we actively acknowledge the blessings in our lives, we shift our focus away from what we don't have and toward what we do. A gratitude practice, whether it's keeping a gratitude journal or simply taking a moment each day to reflect on the things we appreciate, can be incredibly powerful. It helps to foster a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity, reinforcing the idea that we have enough, and we are enough. This practice of simplicity and contentment can also extend to how we approach money. Instead of seeing money as a tool for acquiring more, we can view it as a resource to support our well-being, our relationships, and our personal growth. Money, in this sense, becomes a means to live a more fulfilling life, rather than an end goal to be pursued endlessly. Building on the principles of contentment and simplicity, Buddhist teachings also encourage us to adopt mindful spending habits. Mindful spending involves making intentional, thoughtful decisions about how we use our financial resources. Rather than mindlessly purchasing things out of habit, impulse, or social pressure, we are encouraged to pause and reflect on whether a purchase truly aligns with our values and needs. This practice encourages us to focus on what will bring us lasting fulfillment rather than temporary satisfaction. In the fast-paced world of consumerism, it can be easy to fall into the trap of buying things we don't need. Advertisements and societal norms often pressure us into believing that happiness can be found in the latest gadget, trendy clothing, or expensive experiences. However, mindful spending asks us to question whether these things truly contribute to our well-being or whether they are just distractions from what really matters. By carefully considering our purchases, we are better able to invest in things that enrich our lives, such as experiences, relationships, or personal growth. An important aspect of mindful spending is the recognition of the difference between wants and needs. In modern society, the line between the two can often become blurred. We may convince ourselves that we need the newest model of a smartphone or a designer pair of shoes, when in reality, these are desires rather than necessities. Mindful spending helps us distinguish between what is essential for our well-being and what is driven by fleeting desires. When we shift our focus to what is truly important, we create more room for contentment and reduce the temptation to accumulate things for the sake of status or temporary pleasure. Practicing mindful spending also supports a deeper sense of financial responsibility. When we are conscious of where our money is going, we are more likely to align our spending with our long-term financial goals, whether that's saving for the future, paying down debt, or investing in something meaningful. This awareness helps us break free from the cycle of instant gratification and instead focus on what will bring true and lasting value to our lives. Moreover, mindful spending is not just about being more selective in our purchases, but also about being intentional with our resources in all areas of life. This could mean allocating funds towards experiences that foster personal growth or supporting businesses that share our values, such as those that prioritize sustainability or ethical practices. When we spend money with intention, we align our actions with our deeper values and contribute to a world that reflects those values. By adopting mindful spending, we free ourselves from the cycle of consumerism that often leads to stress, anxiety, and financial instability. Instead, we create a more peaceful, fulfilling life, guided by thoughtful choices and an appreciation for the things that truly matter. This practice allows us to live more harmoniously with our resources, reduce unnecessary waste, and cultivate a sense of financial well-being that supports our broader life goals. As we continue to embrace the practice of mindful spending, we are also reminded of the Buddhist principle of generosity. Generosity, or dana, is seen as a path to spiritual growth and abundance. Rather than hoarding wealth or resources, we are encouraged to share what we have with others. Generosity fosters a sense of interconnectedness, reminding us that true abundance is not about accumulating wealth, but about giving and sharing with others. When we give with an open heart, we not only help others, but we also cultivate joy and fulfillment in our own lives. The practice of generosity is deeply rooted in Buddhist teachings, where it is considered one of the most important ways to develop a healthy relationship with both wealth and life itself. Generosity, known as dana, is not just about giving material goods, but about cultivating an open and compassionate heart. It's a way of living that reflects a belief in abundance, not scarcity. When we give freely, we affirm that there is more than enough in the world for everyone, and that true wealth is found in sharing, rather than accumulating. In everyday life, generosity can take many forms. It's not always about making large donations or giving away significant amounts of money. Sometimes, it's as simple as offering your time, lending a listening ear to someone in need, or sharing a smile with a stranger. Small acts of kindness create a ripple effect, spreading positivity and fostering a sense of connection in the community. These simple, everyday gestures of generosity have the power to transform both the giver and the receiver, creating a world that feels more supportive and compassionate. As we practice generosity, we also begin to shift our mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance. This change in perspective allows us to view our resources, whether money, time, or energy, not as limited commodities that we must hoard, but as tools we can use to make a positive impact on others. This shift is incredibly liberating. It frees us from the fear of not having enough, and opens the door to more opportunities to give. As the Buddha famously said, thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle. and the life of the candle will not be shortened. When we share our light with others, it does not diminish our own but instead multiplies the joy and goodness in the world. This concept of generosity is not limited to giving material goods but extends to the sharing of knowledge, wisdom, and compassion. For instance, if you have learned something valuable that could help someone else, sharing that knowledge is a powerful act of generosity. Whether it's offering advice, teaching a skill, or simply being present for someone who needs support, we are constantly given opportunities to share the wealth of our experiences. Generosity also brings us closer to understanding the interconnectedness of all beings. It reminds us that we are part of a larger web of life, and that our actions have the power to impact others. When we give selflessly, we break down the barriers of isolation and selfishness, creating a more cohesive and compassionate world. In this way, generosity becomes a spiritual practice that strengthens our sense of community and enhances our own spiritual growth. Through generosity, we begin to experience the true meaning of wealth. It is not measured by the number of material possessions we own, but by the depth of the relationships we cultivate and the joy we bring to others. Generosity fosters a sense of fulfillment that no amount of material wealth can provide. By embracing the practice of giving, we not only enrich the lives of others but also nourish our own hearts and minds. In addition, by giving, we align ourselves with the Buddhist idea of right livelihood, which encourages us to earn a living in a way that does not harm others and benefit society. Generosity helps us avoid the pitfalls of greed and materialism, guiding us toward a more balanced, ethical approach to wealth. It is a path that leads to greater peace, happiness, and spiritual growth. As we continue to practice generosity, we may notice a profound shift in our own lives. We may find ourselves less focused on accumulating wealth for the sake of status or security, and more focused on using our resources, whatever they may be, to make a positive impact on the world. This practice encourages us to lead lives that are rich not only in material things but in love, compassion, and purpose. The principle of contentment is another cornerstone of Buddhist teachings that profoundly shapes our relationship with money and abundance. In a world where the pursuit of more possessions, more success, more recognition, often drives people, the idea of contentment stands in stark contrast. Contentment doesn't mean settling for less or ignoring personal growth, rather, it's about appreciating what we already have and cultivating a deep sense of inner satisfaction. In Buddhism, contentment is viewed as a form of spiritual wealth. The Buddha himself emphasized that true happiness does not come from material accumulation, but from cultivating a peaceful mind and a grateful heart. He said, "Health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth, faithfulness the best relationship." This insight invites us to shift our focus from external sources of happiness to the internal state of our mind and heart. When we are content with what we have, we find peace in the present moment. Regardless of our financial situation, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive for improvement or success, but rather that our sense of fulfillment shouldn't depend solely on external achievements. Contentment is about recognizing that, in many ways, we already have everything we truly need to live a meaningful and joyful life. It's about finding satisfaction in simplicity and being grateful for the things that bring us true happiness, like relationships, health, and personal growth. For example, in our consumer-driven society, it's easy to get caught up in the belief that we need more to be happy, more clothes, a bigger house, a newer car. But the more we focus on accumulating things, the less we often appreciate what we already possess. Practicing contentment helps us avoid falling into this trap of endless desire and dissatisfaction. By being content with the present moment, we free ourselves from the constant pressure to acquire more and more. Contentment also encourages us to practice gratitude. When we regularly take time to reflect on the things we are thankful for, we naturally begin to appreciate the abundance that already exists in our lives. Whether it's a loving family, a supportive community, or a job that brings us purpose, practicing gratitude shifts our attention away from what we lack and toward what we have. This mindset cultivates a sense of abundance, reducing feelings of envy or inadequacy that often arise from comparing ourselves to others. In practical terms, contentment can be seen in the way we manage our finances. Instead of striving to keep up with the latest trends or competing with others over material possessions, we can make intentional choices that align with our values. For instance, rather than constantly upgrading our gadgets or clothes, we might choose to invest in experiences that bring joy, such as travel, learning, or spending quality time with loved ones. These investments often provide more lasting happiness than the fleeting satisfaction of purchasing new items. Contentment also teaches us the value of sufficiency. Knowing when enough is enough helps us avoid the pitfalls of excess and overconsumption. This mindset can be liberating. By recognizing that we don't need to have everything to be happy, we can let go of the anxiety and stress that often accompany the pursuit of more. This is not to say that we shouldn't work towards goals or improve our lives, but that we can do so from a place of gratitude and peace, rather than from a place of insatiable desire. A powerful story from Buddhist tradition illustrates the concept of contentment. A wealthy man, puzzled by the simplicity of a monk's lifestyle, once asked him why he lived with so few possessions. The monk replied, "I have everything I need." The rich man, although surrounded by material wealth, realized that he was still searching for something deeper, happiness that didn't come from external things. This story highlights the profound truth that true contentment comes not from what we own, but from how we relate to what we have. When we adopt this perspective, we start to see that material possessions are not the key to lasting happiness. Rather, it is the quality of our relationships, the clarity of our purpose, and the richness of our inner life that truly defines our sense of abundance. As we embrace contentment, we cultivate a deeper sense of peace, knowing that we are enough just as we are, and that what we have is sufficient for a fulfilling and meaningful life. This shift in perspective also has a profound effect on our financial decisions. Instead of focusing on accumulating wealth for the sake of status or security, we begin to make choices based on our true needs and values. Contentment helps us recognize that wealth, in and of itself, is not the ultimate goal. It's simply a tool that can be used to support a life of meaning and purpose. In the end, contentment isn't about renouncing all material things, but about developing a balanced approach to life. It's about appreciating what we already have and letting go of the relentless pursuit of more. When we practice contentment, we open ourselves to the true richness of life, experiencing abundance not in what we own, but in how we live, love, and give. The concept of mindful consumption is an essential aspect of living a balanced, harmonious life, as taught in Buddhist principles. Mindful consumption is about being aware of the choices we make, especially when it comes to what we buy, how much we consume, and the impact it has on our well-being and the environment. In our modern world, where consumerism often reigns, it's easy to fall into the trap of mindlessly acquiring more things, believing that the next purchase will bring happiness or fulfillment. However, true contentment doesn't come from accumulating material goods, but from living intentionally and with awareness of what we truly need. Mindful consumption encourages us to pause and reflect on the value of what we bring into our lives. Every item we purchase takes up space in our homes and our minds. When we purchase mindfully, we ask ourselves, do I really need this? Will this bring me lasting joy or simply a temporary sense of satisfaction? By making intentional choices, we begin to create an environment that supports our well-being and aligns with our deeper values. In Buddhism, attachment to material possessions is seen as one of the root causes of suffering. The desire to accumulate and hold on to things often creates a sense of scarcity and dissatisfaction, as the mind constantly seeks more, believing that more will bring happiness. However, this pursuit of external satisfaction often leads to stress and anxiety, as the mind can never be fully satisfied. Mindful consumption, on the other hand, teaches us to let go of the attachment to possessions and to find peace in simplicity. A key aspect of mindful consumption is recognizing when enough is enough. This idea resonates with the Buddhist teaching of the middle way, which encourages balance and moderation in all aspects of life. In our material world, where we are bombarded with advertisements and marketing that push us to want more, it can be challenging to know when to stop. However, by practicing mindfulness, we can cultivate the wisdom to recognize when we have enough. Reducing the unnecessary accumulation of things and avoiding the clutter that often overwhelms us, the Buddha taught that attachment is the root of all suffering, and this principle extends to our relationship with possessions. When we attach too much value to material things, we create an internal imbalance. Mindful consumption helps us to detach from this obsession with acquiring more, allowing us to find peace in what we already have. This doesn't mean we should renounce all possessions, but rather that we should approach our possessions with awareness, recognizing that they are tools to support our well-being, not the source of it. By practicing mindful consumption, we also become more conscious of the environmental impact of our choices. Every product we buy has an effect on the world around us, whether it's the resources used to produce it, the energy it consumes, or the waste it generates. In Buddhism, there is a strong emphasis on compassion and interconnectedness, and mindful consumption allows us to reflect on how our choices affect not only our own lives but the lives of others and the planet. By choosing products that are ethically produced, environmentally friendly, and sustainable, we can align our consumption with our values of compassion and care for all living beings. In addition, mindful consumption helps us to cultivate gratitude. When we are mindful of our purchases and consumption, we become more appreciative of what we already have. We start to value the things that truly contribute to our well-being, such as relationships, experiences, and health, rather than constantly seeking material goods for external validation or fleeting pleasure. Gratitude helps us shift our focus from what we lack to what we have, fostering a sense of abundance even in the absence of more possessions. An example of mindful consumption can be seen in how we approach gifts and presents. Instead of buying items out of obligation or to fulfill a social expectation, we can choose to give gifts that have personal meaning or that support the well-being of the recipient. This could be something handmade, an experience like a shared meal or a trip, or even an act of kindness. By choosing gifts with intention and care, we can avoid the trap of consumerism and create deeper connections with those we care about. Mindful consumption also invites us to be more selective with how we spend our time and energy. Just as we choose carefully what we bring into our physical space, we can also choose how we spend our emotional and mental energy. By engaging in activities and relationships that align with our values, we can cultivate a life that is fulfilling and meaningful. free from the distractions of unnecessary busyness or negativity. Ultimately, the practice of mindful consumption helps us to create a life that is in alignment with our true self and our deeper values. It encourages us to live more consciously, make better decisions, and be more present in every aspect of our lives. Through mindfulness, we can break free from the cycle of consumerism and excess, finding true satisfaction in the simple, meaningful things that enrich our lives. Thank you for watching the video to the end. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how these mindful practices can transform your approach to abundance and financial well-being. Do you already incorporate any of these principles in your life? Share your experiences in the comments. Your insights are valuable to us.